On the phone with somebody else when the law office called, and I actually hung up on both people and just kind of sat there for a moment. I was stunned. So, yeah. What was your reaction, Jason?
I'm sorry, which one's Nick and who's Jason?
I'm Nick. This is Jason. Just squeeze them together.
Okay.
What did you do, Jason?
I guess I was surprised that it happened this early in the morning. After Friday with no decision, we kind of thought maybe we'd wait at least till end of day today, or maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. Yeah, it was amazing that it happened first thing, and what better way to start off the week?
How has the wait been? I mean, it was a week and no word, and so what was it like waiting and the anticipation?
I'd say the first day was probably the hardest, because I think a lot of us thought that maybe we'd get a ruling from the bench when we walked in, and we'd walk out that day in court and have marriage equality in Nebraska. So after the first day, I mean, we knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time, and we've waited this long. What's a couple more days?
Can you just kind of tell us what you guys have been through and the struggle and the fight and overcoming all of these things?
Tracy, you want to join in?
Yeah, I'll start.
We don't want to hog the mic.
So Marge and I were married in California when we lived in California and had lived as married for many years. And so our move to Nebraska, I think, was more challenging than we thought it was going to be, because we hadn't really anticipated how hard it was going to be to feel like your rights were stripped. So when we think about what we'll do now, I think we'll have a bigger party than we did when we got married, because we actually know what it feels like to have lost the right and to gain it back. I think that our wait this week was hard, but this next week is going to be hard for the number of couples who have waited so long in Nebraska, and I know there are many people out there who are trying to figure out what they're going to do on Monday or Tuesday, and I'm just thrilled that they'll get to have their love and their families recognized finally.
So both of you couples have been married in other states. Do you have any advice for couples who are planning on being married come Monday? I mean, advice as to what they may face from the public as well.
I guess I'd have to say, surprisingly, the reaction from the public has been nothing but good. I don't know. I'll let Tracy talk about what her experience has been in Omaha, but Nick and I have talked over the last 3.5 years since we adopted Alice, what that reaction would be when we get a negative issue in public, and it's never happened. I mean, no one has said anything negative. I guess it's hard when you've got a cute kid like this, but it's always been positive. Even today, I try not to read the comments on articles, but I'd have to say it was like 95% positive and 1 or 2 negative comments. So I don't know that the negativity's out there. So, Tracy?
And we do know that Greg and Bill, our unmarried plaintiffs, are planning to obtain their marriage license on Tuesday. They're out of town, so we waited all last week and now they're out of town, but they are joyfully preparing to obtain their marriage license. But yes, Tracy, and then your kind of reaction to...
Yeah, I think when we moved
Tracy,
to...
I'm sorry, can you just kind of stand
Sure. I think when we moved to Omaha, we were worried and concerned about what it would be like here. And I think that we have been so pleasantly surprised. Our neighbors have been wonderful and warm since the first day. They came over and brought cookies and cupcakes to welcome us to the neighborhood. I think how we all know that this issue will end up the right way long term on the part of the Supreme Court is that when people come to know and meet our families, they realize that we're just like them, that we love the same way, that we have children and we parent the same way, and that we're not scary, and that we're not trying to destroy anybody else's families. And I think once they learn to know us, that they learn to love us, and when they learn to love us, then this issue will no longer receive a negative response from anyone.
Tracy, you talked about having the rights, losing those rights. What was it, the rights that you lost the most, that you felt most passionate about? And now to gain them back, what is it you look forward to most?
I think the dignity is the part. All of the rest for us was paperwork. We're thankful to the lawyers here who helped us with our durable powers of attorney and durable powers of healthcare and our wills and all of that when we moved here, things that you don't need to do when you're married. But when we signed our house paperwork, and we signed it as buying it as two single women. It's weird to think how that feels, how your whole life is sort of stripped, and the dignity or indignity that you feel from having to be something that you're not. So it's really the respect and the dignity that you get back from the recognition that, for me, is the right, is the recognition of the right in real life.
If the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals issues the stay, or grants the stay, from the state or whatever, and so you have to wait a few months longer, I mean, what's your reaction as far as that? If you have to wait until May or June?
Well, if we have to wait, we have to wait, right? But in my eyes, one more day of having the insecurity for Alice and the constant worry about what could happen to her if something should happen to me, and all of those insecurities, and I worry for Susan and Sally and their health issues and whatnot. I'm not sure that one more day, some people say one more day couldn't hurt, but one more day could hurt, right? One more day could be the end of one of our lives. It could be the health issue that puts one of us over the edge. So I'm not sure one more day can wait. So I urge people to think about that. What would happen if your spouse got in a car accident? What would happen if you received cancer? That's the issues we face every single day. So one more day, we can't wait. That's what I would say.
In the judge's order, he went pretty extensively into the different narratives of the couples. What did you think of that? And just him talking about the complexities of each different couple?
It just shows that Judge Battalion really heard what we had to say, and he understood the issue that's before him. I was quite impressed with the ruling, and that he saw the full scope of the issue.
It goes back to the oral argument. Judge Battalion's very first question to the lawyers was, how are Susan and Sally today? So we knew up front his primary concern were the couples and their real life, and how is this impacting? So we felt like the opinion today resonated with that care, concern, compassion. And I just know, as a lawyer, oftentimes we get court orders that feel stark or feel cold. And in this case, I felt like our clients felt cared for by the judge reciting their unique situation and how this had a direct impact on them.
And I think what the court decision also reminds us is that these are not abstract legal principles. These are just people's real complicated lives. And all of us need the protection of law to secure our families.
Does your optimism come with any caution, knowing that there are still people in this state that disagree with this decision?
I don't know how to phrase it without sounding. Frankly, I'm not concerned about the opposition, because all I'm trying to do is live my life. I would like them to live their lives and do their thing, and I'd like to live my life and protect my family.
I guess to further that, I mean, I think part of the thing about living in Nebraska is we all can have our opinion. The problem, though, is when other people's opinions start affecting the civil liberties of other residents. So I think that's important to realize, that we clearly respect the opposition's personal beliefs. Our concern, though, is when they impact our lives and the lives of the other LGBT couples in Nebraska.
So, if the ruling stands and gay marriage is legal, what's next? I mean, in so many other communities in Nebraska, the workplace rights are not protected. So, are you guys going to continue the fight? And
Absolutely. So we would not rest until we have freedom for all LGBT people in Nebraska. So you're right. Once we get the freedom to marry, then there's the foster care laws, and there's the anti-discrimination in the workplace, and then there's the winning the hearts and the minds of everybody in Nebraska. We've been on a media tour with the ACLU. So all of those things will continue. Just because we win today, it's just one more step in the hurdle to all of those things that to ensure that all Nebraskans are equal under the law, equality before the law, right?
Have you ever thought, though, as far as going through this whole process, where it's like, you just want to be just a regular couple instead of having to be advocates and step up, and you just want to be dads.
Well,
You know what I mean?
It is true. And 14 interviews in 30 weeks is probably a lot to do. But without this, we can't be Dad's Dallas, right? And our other friends that have kids can't be parents to their kids. And other kids, our friends that want to adopt kids can't be parents. So we are in an unfortunate place with the help of everybody here and with the ACLU that we can step forward and be that mouthpiece. Yes, I would like to go home and play with my kid, right? Celebrate with her and that kind of thing. But it's more important for us to stand here today with her and show that we love her and support her and just show her what true families are like. And then someday when she looks back on this and she can look back on all the videotapes and when she can say, that's what my dads did for me and for everybody else.
What are you going to tell her about this time?
I'm hoping that it never has to be an issue. I think for her generation, this will be a non-issue. She'll just have two dads, and that's just the way it is. So,
Having gone through this, has your opinion of Nebraska changed at all?
no, I love Nebraska. We've been here. I've been here for 10, 12 years. Jason's been here all his life. We've talked about moving many, many times. But why should we move a place that we love? So we decided, rather than move to a place that would accept us, we will help Nebraska become a better place for everybody.
I guess the one thing that concerns me is maybe the disconnect. I think the last poll I saw was that 65% of Nebraskans support marriage equality. I find it disheartening that our governor can say the people have made their determination that this is something that they don't want in our state, and clearly that was the case 10 years ago, but I think times have changed. So I guess my only one concern is I feel like we've kind of done our part to step out and share our opinion and share our lives with the rest of Nebraska. For all of us to be equal and have the freedoms that we want, I wish that the rest of the citizens of Nebraska would stand up and voice their opinion so that this wouldn't have to go through the court. Clearly we're happy that it did. But that's kind of, I guess, where my mind is.
The question that the governor said this, after this, the old thing about the majority. How do you respond to people who throw that out? I'm not very complex, but I think the state majority shouldn't have the right to deny.
Right.
Well, and I think Judge Battalion said it beautifully in his opinion when he said the rights of the majority are not able to trod on the rights of the minority. And I think he spoke very broadly to that very concern about whether or not the majority can enact laws that discriminate against people. And he said no. He said that is unconstitutional and we need to stop this practice.
And I think every one of us has been different at some point in our lives for whatever reason that is, our race, our sexual orientation, our political beliefs, our religion. And I think all of us want the protection of the law around being different in whatever time or space that is. And I think most people recognize that as a general principle and value in this country. And I think it's just a matter of connecting that space where people recognize that equality is something we value to seeing us as the same kind of people as everybody else.
I also like to point out that one thing that bothers me growing up, I grew up in another state, is that when our politicians and our leaders say the things that they say against LGBT people or those kinds of things, I don't think they understand the impact that it has on little kids. Growing up, I grew up in Montana. I don't think they understand that when they say these things, it puts you in a mind frame that you're not equal, that you're not perfect, that something's wrong with you. And it puts kids in a really bad mindset, right? And that's why there's such high suicide rates of LGBT peoples and kids, is because they hear that there's something wrong with them, right? Constantly, a barrage of this negative message, there's something wrong with you, when there just really isn't. So when our politicians get on and they say, for whatever stance they have, and they say these things, I just don't think they understand the wedge they're putting in the psyche of little kids. And it's really effective of them, right? It bothers me a lot.
Did you feel that growing up?
Absolutely. It took me a long, long time to get over that. And I have a very supportive family, but still you see these messages all the time, right? There's something wrong with you, you're broken, your church doesn't love you, you're going to hell, all of those things. And it really messes with your brain.
Are you optimistic then for the future of the LGBT community in Nebraska?
Yes, I am very optimistic. I think this is the next step in the long road ahead for us.
And I hope that what people will take from that sentiment is to reach out to, especially an LGBT youth today, and just say, I support you.
Right. And there are lots of great organizations that they can reach out to, and so I would encourage kids to, to reach out and find those places.
One of the arguments that I hear from the other side is, and you brought up forcing your opinion on other people. Some people in the opposition would say that this court battle is forcing your beliefs on them. How would you respond to that?
I think that's a narrow opinion, right? I think that's a way of turning the tables. It's an unfair argument.
And Judge Battalion spoke to that too when he said that the state could not demonstrate any harms to the state. The plaintiffs, can demonstrate actual harm to their well-being, to their finances, to their family, to their legal protections. The state failed to demonstrate that in any way will the state or its citizens be harmed by permitting freedom to marry.
Not to steal a line from that side of opinion or whatever, but is this an example of government overreach?
I actually think this is an example of government stepping out, not reaching at all any longer. Right? They don't need to reach into our lives, period. Just let us live our lives and just let us be a family.
Susan?
Just say it's a great example of the judiciary, that branch of the government, protecting the Constitution, and nothing could be more important.
Susan, I've heard people refer to what the judge had to say, and I didn't hear it, so can you help me with it? Did he refer to each of, did he in his remarks refer to each of the plaintiff's situations?
Yes, Judge Battalion took over 30 pages to set forth the detailed facts and situations of our clients, knowing that each of them are suffering unique harms every day, and that there's an urgency about it. And so that's one of the ways that he was, I think, demonstrating his understanding of the compelling case that we have.
Are all 7 plaintiffs married?
No, 6 of our couples are married, and we have 1 unmarried couple.
Okay.
This week.
This week. Next Tuesday, that will change. They will hopefully all be married. All right. I think we'll be complete. Alice has been a good sport.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.